I love Pokemon. I always have, and I always probably will. I am the most invested in Pokemon now than I ever have been before, and I am still actively playing Pokemon Go in 2024. I collect the cards, I have plushies, and I eventually want to collect every single mainline game. But what charms me the most about Pokemon is the designs. It's one of the biggest things that has drawn me to art. However, lately, some of the designs... oh boy. There's a handful of designs that I either have no opinion on, generally dislike but I can shrug it off, and then flat out just hate. I chose 5 Pokemon to redesign today in hopes that I would appreciate said Pokemon more. But before we get into it, I want to reiterate a couple of things. This video is entirely subjective. I'm making this video primarily for me, so I won't be going super into detail about making them look like Pokemon. In other terms, I'm not even going to try to make them look like Fakemon. I'm not even going to replicate the style. And most importantly, I'm not out here saying, this is how to design a Pokemon! This Pokemon should look like this! Pokemon designers don't know what they're doing! No, that's not what this is at all. In fact, I only hate about 10 Pokemon. That's a pretty generous number in a pool of over 1,000 Pokemon. I just wanted to have fun making this video, so of course some of the redesigns don't look super polished and interesting. So, which Pokemon did I choose? Well, I looked over the entire Pokédex and I initially wrote down like 30 Pokemon I didn't like, but then I looked at them all and decided I wasn't going to redesign 30 of them. So I reduced it to just 10. I told myself, yeah, 10 is good, I could definitely do that many for one video. But then I got like 3 redesigns done and wanted to rip my hair out. So then I just decided to do 5. I felt more comfortable doing that many. I chose Emboar, Cryogonal, Chesnaught, Stonjourner, and Eiscue. And yet there's still Pokemon I hated more than the ones I redesigned, but I just had no fucking clue how I was going to redesign them. Like Incineroar? Huh? I never played Sun and Moon, so whenever I saw him I always thought, oh, he's a firefighting dual type, that's interesting, except he's not! He's Fire Dark! Why did they make him a wrestler if he's not even a fighting type? But before I just jump into redesigning them head on, I had to ask myself a couple of questions. What makes a Pokemon design look like a Pokemon? Why don't I like these designs? What do I like in a Pokemon design? Thankfully, I can answer the last 2 from my own personal opinion, but the first question required me to do some research. So I ran to Google in hopes to get some answers. Typically, Pokemon designs have about 2 to 4 colors that are bold, but not too dull or saturated though. Not overly complex nor too simple in design, so it can still translate well into 3D model. Usually, the Pokemon designs are stylized, but not exaggerated. So they still follow rules in anatomy, but after all, it's a fantasy world. And then to make them look relatable, meaning they usually have a face or arms and legs. All Pokemon aren't animalistic, some of them are just straight up objects, but it still works. They usually have a face 99% of the time. There are a few exceptions to that rule though. Now that I somewhat understand how a Pokemon is designed, I went to Bulbapedia to read each Pokemon's biology, just in case I completely missed something in the design that I could try to convey better in my redesign. Most of them I didn't, but I was still surprised by some of them. Now that I have taken all of my notes, I can move on to the sketching process. And man, when I tell you how difficult this legitimately was. I understand what I don't like in these designs, and I understand what I do like in a Pokemon, but to go in and quote-unquote fix them is an entirely different ballgame. Translating your thoughts onto paper is already a difficult thing for any artist to do. So all I have to grasp onto for these is simply hoping and praying it'll come out the way I'd like it to. I give major props to those who can design a Pokemon over at Game Freak. I'm not a professional designer, I'm literally just doing this for fun, but it's causing me a great amount of anxiety for no reason. So I just had to push myself and just do it. I started off with Emboar. Out of all the redesigns, I like how Emboar came out the best. I think he looks pretty cool. When I went to Bulbapedia to read about Emboar, I was enthralled by the concept behind it. He's based off of Zhang Fei from The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is a novel written in the 14th century. But Zhang Fei was an actual person. He was a Chinese military general and a politician during the late Eastern Han Dynasty period. Honestly, after looking at what Zhang Fei looked like and comparing it to Emboar, I have to say, they did a good job for the most part. It reflects well in his bushy eyebrows, his fur resembling Chinese armor, the fiery collar, etc, etc. So, I had to sit back and take a deep look into specifically what I don't like about Emboar. I mainly don't like that he's standing, which I know Pig Knight is standing too, but I'm completely disregarding him. I'm solely focusing on Emboar. If I were to redesign the entire line, I would have approached this differently. So I made Emboar quadrupedal and kept the bushy eyebrows and the fiery collar. Though I did make his tusks longer to make him look intimidating as a warrior should. I also wanted to make his eyes more slanted to give him the appearance of a helmet to where you can just barely see the eyes at all. Then I was just left with the body. I was stumped at first on how to make it look Chinese, so I just kept the design he originally had on his stomach and flipped it to be on his side. I gave him a fiery tail similar to Charmander, but I was originally going to avoid doing that because that's Charmander's whole gimmick, that if its flame goes out, it dies, but I'm playing God right now, so I can make the rules and I can legally do whatever I want. Plus, I tried making Emboar's tail more bushy in comparison to Charmander's tail, so then it's just the final touchings and ta-da! That's my Emboar redesign. The only things I change about it is making the legs a bit thicker and to make the symbol on the top of its back rather than on the sides of his body. But overall, I'm actually very happy with how it came out. Next is Cryogonal, and I must say, this one didn't come out the way I was hoping it would, but that's mainly on my skills as an artist rather than my ideas for the Pokemon itself. When I was reading about Cryogonal, I have to admit, I didn't know he was meant to be a snowflake. Like at all. Looking at him now, I can see it, but at first he looks like some Tony Stark robot shit to me. The Bulbapedia mentioned how Cryogonal has an ice chain, which to me looks like something else entirely. I sketched a very simple snowflake design and made two of the ridges its arms, and I wanted to keep the idea that Cryogonal has a weapon, so I went with a sickle. Get it? Sickle? The Bulbapedia also mentions how its face is frozen stuck to make it look constantly aggressive, so I kept that too. I wish I was able to convey the redesign better through my artwork, but the ideas still come across, so I don't really mind. I'm trying not to take this video too seriously, but hopefully y'all agree he looks cooler like this, right? I kept it simple. Fixed, I guess. After Cryogonal, I moved on to Chesnaught. I have a few gripes with his design, but I don't hate Chesnaught. In fact, I hate Quilladin in the line more than I hate Chesnaught. I didn't know how to go about drawing his body type, so I outlined a model just to make it easier on myself, just so I can move on to the designing process. Chesnaught is also based on a warrior, which I can kind of see that, but why not just make it more apparent in the redesign? So I gave him more spikes. I honestly wanted to give him more, but figured his back would look too cluttered if I did. So I just gave him more spikes on his shields that are on his arms. I didn't like how he looked bald to me in the original design, so I tried giving him fur on his head to resemble a helmet just like I did with my Emboar redesign. My boy is a warrior, he needs to look like it! My main problem with Chesnaught is his colors. His palette just completely swaps out of nowhere and I don't fuck with it. I referenced the colors used in Chespin and Quilladin so it actually looks like an evolution to me, even though some people will argue the colors change in the final evolutions for the starters anyways, like Blaziken and Samurott, but those are still shades of orange and blue! Chesnaught goes from a dark brown to a very light cream color. It just doesn't mesh well for me. He's also meant to be a hedgehog, I believe, so why would they make him have lines on his body? He looks like a tortoise now? So I completely scrapped those and made him more fuzzy and furry. There's my Chesnaught. He's friend-shaped now. I'd add more to my final redesign. He looks a bit bland to me, but again, I'm trying not to take this too seriously, it's just for fun. Next we have Stonjourner. And if you know me personally, you know that I hate Stonjourner. I think making a Pokemon based off of a location isn't a good idea. Just put Stonehenge as a location in the game. Sword and Shield would have been infinitely cooler with that anyways, but nope! Have a sentient fucking rock as a Pokemon. That's so lame in my opinion, so I said fuck that and scrapped it entirely. If I had to make it into a Pokemon, I would have ran with the idea that Stonehenge was used as a burial site for centuries ago. Force it to become a ghost rock Pokemon. And I should have done more research before doing the speed paint because my dumbass confused Stonehenge with the Standing Stones in Scotland. Stonehenge is in the United Kingdom. The ghost was based off of the Will-o'-the-Wisps in Scotland folklore, and they're depicted as mischievous spirits, or ghosts of the dead. So, after I drew that and looked it up, I thought I would have had to redraw the entire thing again because I mixed them up. But, recent studies have actually shown that Stonehenge actually came from Scotland and not Wales. So it still ties in together if that's the origin. The largest quote-unquote blue stone from Stonehenge was analyzed by its chemistry of the minerals and fragments of the stone, and it's traced back to Scotland, so I'm running with it. I'm not actually a dumb bitch, I'm just psychic. I'm a psychic now. Anyways, due to the fact that Will-o'-the-Wisps are actually mischievous and typically lead people to their deaths in the folklore, I wanted to make the ghosts use Stonehenge as rocks as a weapon and use it telepathically. Like, I see them levitating the rocks and using them as a shield, or putting them together like a sword, kind of like, you know, sword and shield. Like, it's the name of the game, guys! I should have colored the ghost purple, but blue still works. And this is my Stonjourner redesign. Then finally, we have Eiscue. The original design is just so pathetic. Like, it's just a block on the head of a penguin. I asked my friends how they felt about Eiscue, and they all liked it and thought he was super cute, so maybe I'm just in the minority here? My whole problem with why I dislike Eiscue is because he's way too simple. It needs more pizzazz. Make him look cooler. Jesus fucking Christ. I decided to make him a macaroni penguin simply because it's my favorite kind of penguin, and again, I'm playing God in this video, so I can legally do whatever I want. There is no logical reason why I chose a macaroni penguin other than that. So I replaced the hair with ice and used the same eye trick I used with Emboar and Chesnaught under the eyebrows to make it look more aggressive. I knew I wanted to have ice at the end of his fins, similar to how Cerulege looks, and also might as well put ice at the end of his tail, why not? But with that alone, he was still looking plain to me. So fuck it, add ice crystals on his backs and shoulders. Honestly, I wish I was a bit more creative with this design, but I still like it better than this ugly duckling. And there we have it! Those are my redesigns. I want to repeat, these redesigns is not me saying this is how the Pokemon should have looked. This video was purely for fun, and this was my desperate attempt for me to fix them. I had fun nonetheless. I would love to make another video like this again for even more Pokemon I have a strong disdain for. I would fix so many things about my redesigns if I had the energy and time to, but it is what it is. I hope y'all enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed making this video. So thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, bye!